What's up, everybody? Haven't done one of these in a long time. I basically don't even get on Facebook anymore. Once every couple of days, I'll get on here and say something, but man, I don't know how you guys hang out here. Honestly, I don't. Facebook is, it's cheesy. It's an antiquated social media platform. It's probably one of the most censored places on the internet that gathers more data than just about anywhere else on the internet, and I don't know why that's okay. I mean, I know why, you know, everybody was on Facebook for a long time, and so you kind of had to be on Facebook to have a digital footprint in the world. But man, that was a long time ago, and there's way better places to hang out and communicate. Unfortunately, they're all owned by leftist cultural Marxists, but YouTube is a far better platform to grow an audience. Twitter is a better way to communicate with your fans. Facebook just sort of serves no purpose. Facebook has become like the boomer hangout for politics, and that's about it. There's not really much else to Facebook these days, and I've just grown, and there have been several times where I've quit for months at a time. Quit Facebook. That was mostly due to the community issues with the writing community that I used to belong to. These days, I just don't hang out here because it's just useless. There's nothing to it. I don't like how much of my own personal information is required just to be here. I don't like the censorship. There's so much censorship on Facebook. So many people are you get 24-hour bans, 30-day bans. I got a 24-hour ban just for talking about the Roseanne Barr situation because I had the audacity to say that the woman that she insulted actually did, you know, look like the insult she made, and I had a 24-hour ban in my own comments of my own Facebook post for talking frankly about a situation in pop culture, very important situation to a lot of people that are fans of Roseanne. And it's just like, why bother? Why be here? Like it's like hanging out in a high school classroom with the teachers and principals, like listening to everything you're saying. That's fucking lame. It's absolutely lame. There's way cooler places on the internet that you can go and say whatever the fuck you want. And you can monetize a lot of different social media platforms. Can you monetize a fucking Facebook live stream? I don't think so. I don't think you guys can send me super chats and shit through my Facebook live stream. I don't think that's possible. Why are we here? Anyway, the title of this live chat, this stream, this Facebook live post is that GWAR, the band GWAR, is dead to me. And I've been a fan of GWAR for a long time, since the 90s. And I've seen GWAR live more times than I can count. And they are going to be in St. Louis tomorrow night. And I can't go see GWAR if I wanted to because I have there's a wedding in my family this weekend, and we're doing the dress rehearsal tomorrow night. So I'm not going to be able to go to see GWAR if I wanted to, but it had me sort of in a GWAR mood, and I hadn't listened to the newest GWAR album, Blood of the Gods, which is their first record with their new singer Mike Bishop. So Dave Brockie, the founder, architect, lead singer of GWAR, played the character Odorous Arungus. He died of a heroin overdose in 2014, and this Mike Bishop dude, who had been Beefcake the Almighty, the bass player at some point in the past, came back and became the character Blothar, the new lead singer for GWAR. And I was curious, you know, I've seen a couple of their music videos, and the guy is a competent singer for what you got. I mean, all you got to do is sort of growl and shriek, and you're a GWAR singer. I mean, it's not We're not doing classical ballads here. You know what I'm saying? But I hadn't listened to the record. So I listened to the record last night. I gave the whole record a spin, and it was exactly what I expected it to be, because I had, when Bishop joined the band, he even did like a TED Talk, because he's a fucking academic. He's a PhD. He's a professor. He's Dr. Mike Bishop. He has a PhD in music theory, and he also teaches writing courses. And so he's an academic. And I just had the feeling that when I put this record on, I was going to get postmodernist, cultural Marxist indoctrination from front to back. And there's a few GWAR songs that are just GWAR songs that are fun, cartoony, kill everything, violent, space monsters that want to see the destruction of planet Earth. But why is Blothar singing about Earthlings not breeding and global warming? Like, why does he care if why does an alien who's trying to destroy the planet care that Earthlings are overpopulating their own planet, which is not even a thing that's happening? But of course, it's lefty academia through the filter of GWAR trying to make me as a white person feel bad for breeding. And, it's only Western. It's only Western Caucasians that are told that we pollute too much, that we breed too much, that we spend too much, that we're too fat. We are the sole cause of climate change, man-made climate change. This is the guilt. This is the Catholic guilt. This is the secular version of Catholic guilt. They put all this on white people, and we're all. Lana asks, what does GWAR stand for? GWAR is just the name of a band. GWAR is a metal band. It doesn't stand for anything. It's just GWAR. So we get this, of course, we get this leftist guilt that's directed solely at white Westerners. You don't tell, and there's anti-Christian songs. Again, why an alien from outer space that wants to destroy our planet cares what gods Earthlings worship? No idea. That goes back to Dave Brockie. She says, I thought it stood for something. No, it doesn't stand for anything. They're just GWAR. So you get anti-Christian songs. Again, why this alien from outer space cares what gods Earthlings worship is beyond me. But that goes back to Dave Brockie. There's a hilarious music video where he's where Odorous Orungus is playing basketball against Jesus, and he dunks on Jesus and absolutely just destroys Jesus in this basketball game. And it's retarded, and it's supposed to be, and it's funny. And that was a time period in the late 80s and early 90s when the evangelical Christians of the Western world had both political and social power. And so beating the shit out of Jesus in a basketball game in the late 80s, early 90s was defiance to power. And that moral majority of evangelicals in the 90s, they tried to impose those moral values onto the culture, and they were exposed as a lot of the leadership the vocal leadership in the evangelical community was exposed as frauds. They were defrauding their base of money. They were shown to be philanderers. They were shown to cheat on their wives and do drugs and drink a lot. And so, and then we had the Catholic priest pedophile scandal that was exposed in the late 90s. So there was the power base of the evangelicals, of the Christian right, was exposed and defeated by the late 90s through their own hand. And so when metal music and when artists, when comic books, movies, novelists, fiction, when all these things pushed back, when the counterculture pushed back against the Christian right in the 80s and 90s, there was a reason for it. It was oppressive. It was oppressing the culture. It was attempting to censor the culture, right? So it always astounds me when I see these figures like Marilyn Manson or GWAR or any of these counterculture icons from the 1980s and 90s, like Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols. He gets it. You see in his more recent interviews, he says Trump is punk rock. He says conservatism is the new counterculture, and he understands that the power structure in Western culture is liberal, is leftist, is cultural Marxism, postmodernism. That's the power structure. That is the PC culture of today is the moral majority. And it is the structure that attempts to silence us. So back in the 80s and early 90s, when you had like Dee Snider from Twisted Sister hauled in front of Congress to explain the lyrical content of metal music, because it was, turning children to devil worship, animal sacrifice, murder, and suicide, according to the popular belief among the evangelicals, that these were that metal music was directly influencing children to cause violence. You had Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife, who introduced the rating system, explicit content rating system that we still to this day put on music. That was all introduced as political correctness, as an attempt to censor art that was deemed violent. Right? It was a clear suppression of free speech. What we see happening to figures like Alex Jones and Owen Benjamin and Gavin McInnes, what we see happening to these Milo Yiannopoulos, what we see happening to these prominent figures, these prominent conservative figures today, they're being hauled in front of Congress. They're being censored. They're being banned. We have these Twitter terms of service about violent speech and about safe speech are the mirror image of Tipper Gore's explicit content warnings. That somehow Alex Jones and Milo Yiannopoulos and Gavin McInnes are calling for violence. That their speech is hate speech. That this hate speech is causing real violence in the world, and while we're not bringing in government sanctions, like with the explicit content warning from the 90s, that was literally big federal government intervention. We have corporatist intervention right now. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Twitter's terms of service are no different than the explicit content warning, except one is a monopoly in the sector, is government. And you'll have lefties and some libertarians, purists, that'll jump in here and say, well, that's not a violation of free speech, Kevin. But we literally have federal oversight to make sure that a phone company can't end my phone calls and ban me from talking on my phone for having the wrong politics or for talking about hateful things. I can say whatever I want to on my phone. So that oversight will eventually come to social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube in order to stop them from infringing on our free speech. Like, yes, a private company like Sprint or AT&T can infringe on your free speech. They can do that and have to be regulated to not do it. They have to be stopped from doing it, or they will. They want to. And then we stop them from doing it because of the First Amendment. That's how this whole thing works. Sean Lewis says, politics aside, the album Blood of the Gods sucks. I didn't mind it. I thought there was a couple good jams on there. I thought the music was pretty decent. The actual music is not bad. It's dirty, it's lazy, but it's GWAR. It was never meant to be. They were never meant to be musical geniuses. They are monsters that kill things on stage and spray the crowd with blood and cum. I mean, that's what GWAR is supposed to be about. And again, this isn't about whether or not Dave Brockie was political in the 1990s. I tried to explain that was good. It was good. It was good that, there's bands like Motorhead and Danzig, who I love, and their 90s music rails against religion. They're not railing against religion just because they didn't just randomly pick religion out of the fucking clear blue sky. They were rallying against religion. They were a countercult against Christianity because Christianity was oppressive to the culture in the 1980s and 90s. It astounds me that those figures have never been able to make the transition. And maybe they don't make the transition because they think they're still like are they singing to like 49-year-old dudes that still think they live in the 1990s and haven't caught up culturally, politically, socially, haven't caught up and figured out where the power structure lies today? Are they afraid that if they sing and write lyrics about the current power structure, that they'll lose their fans? I don't know why this. It's as though the teenagers from the 1990s are stuck there, and I find this happens even to my friends in real life that I went to high school with. We'll have debates on Facebook, political debates and social debates. And it's like their development, their political understanding and their social understanding, their development arrested in the 1990s. They have never taken their head out of the sand past the 1990s to ever see where we are. I mean, I guess like into the early 2000s, like fuck George Bush, fuck those oil wars, man. All they did was make Halliburton rich. And that's very true. But that was like the last gasp of the right. That was the last gasp of the evangelical right, and we did a decade of postmodernism. We did a decade of Obama. So if each new decade, if the generation of teenagers and people in their early 20s for each decade rebels, creates a counterculture to rebel against the decade that came before them, why do we just skip over? Why is GWAR skipping over the Obama decade, the postmodernist decade, the socialism decade, and reaching back? There's songs on that album that directly attack Christianity. Dude, the evangelicals have no power. Well, Mike Pence is the vice president, bro. Yeah, he's been the vice president for 5 minutes and has done nothing. What's Mike Pence's agenda? He's going to shock the gays. He hates the gays. He wants to give them electroshock therapy. Where's the federal electroshock therapy? It ain't here and it ain't coming. Why do we skip over the Obama decade? Why aren't our metal bands and why doesn't our rap music, like Kanye West gets it? Fucking Kanye West. I've never listened to a Kanye West song in my life. He's got his MAGA hat hanging out with President Trump going, this is how we, he understands. This is how we rebuild our country. Socialism took us to the brink of the abyss, and Trump is here to walk us back. Kanye West gets it, but GWAR doesn't. It's because Kanye West isn't indoctrinated. He didn't go to an Ivy League college. He's not a PhD in musical theory and writing. He's not a college professor. So that's my rant on GWAR. I was disappointed, but not surprised that this lefty teacher was going to bring cultural Marxism into into GWAR in a major way. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't care about your politics. I don't care what your social values are. When it comes to the art of storytelling, you can put your views into allegories in your stories and bury it in symbolism, and people on the surface may never even discover that those messages are there. If you do it right, if you're good, if you're talented. This guy, for all his academic prowess, has no tact with his message. And maybe Dave Brockie was just better at that. And maybe I'm just being selective. And again, even putting it in context, it doesn't matter, because it made sense to be counterculture towards the evangelicals in the 80s and 90s. It just doesn't matter anymore. That's not who's trying to suppress your speech. They don't have any power. And we need the punk rock and the metal and the rap music and the art community and the comic books and fiction and movies, the indie movie filmmakers. If they truly want to be subversive, if they truly want to be a counterculture, they need to push back against postmodernism. They need to push back against this socialist indoctrination that we have being just dumped on us like an avalanche from media, movies, big tech, big social. It's everywhere. It's all in our schools, you know. I can't put myself in the mindset of a kid that goes to school. His middle school math teacher has the exact same talking points as the old ladies on The View, and he puts in the new GWAR record to rebel against his math teacher and the old ladies on TV. And then the cow monster Blothar in GWAR is telling him the same thing his math teacher and the old ladies on TV are telling him. How does this work? I can't imagine being a teenager today. And there's no escaping it. Like, when I was listening to Marilyn Manson as a 16-year-old kid, Marilyn Manson was attacking the family, the thinly veiled hypocrisy of the family values that I was being preached to by my teachers and by the television and by the talk show hosts and everyone else. Like, I went to metal music. I was listening to Korn and Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails and Tool. I was listening to all that as an antidote to the type of oppressive moral message that the culture was trying to send me hypocritically. And the movies I watched and the comic books and the fiction I read, it was all an antidote to the hypocrisy. How can you be a teenager today? Where do you go? I mean, I guess they're going to YouTube. They're watching people like Razor Fist. They're watching PewDiePie. They're watching Styx Hexenhammer, Gavin McInnes, Milo Yiannopoulos. These social media YouTubers, they're the escape. The heavy metal band of alien monsters that sacrifice people on stage and shoot blood and cum into the crowd, they're not the antidote anymore. That sucks. The only escape is to watch dudes talk on YouTube. That's fucking lame. Fucking suck being a kid today. That's about all I have to say. Thanks for hanging out. I guess I'll see you when I see you.